yeah, so he seems to be very, very, very Capricorn. If you're on my YouTube channel, this is No Light Tarot. Great to have you all. This is an intuitive based reading. I'm going to be covering today James Spears and Lynn Spears, and I don't want to copy other people's words, but it's a deep dive, because I feel like a lot of people use deep dive, but this is a deep dive, the tarot version. So it's intuitive based, it's not fact based. Please don't treat it as such. I'm usually quite accurate. Doesn't mean that I'll be accurate here. If I am, I usually post about it on my Instagram, so please make sure you follow my Instagram. If you're on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okie dokie, so I have been so interested in finding out the deeper meaning of what has been happening between James Spears and Lynn Spears, because I feel like they're on one another's sides, they aren't. They're on one another's sides, they aren't. So they're very contradictory, in fact, throughout the years. And as somebody who grew up, I mean, Britney to me was our generation's Michael Jackson, really. And I know a lot of Beyonce fans are going to come after that, but it's okay. We are entitled to our own opinion. For me, what makes Britney so unique is that she was dancing and singing, and I know people say that about Beyonce too, but Britney has a way of moving that is just so unique. And so it's like same thing with Michael, it's just in their bones, like their bones were made for them to dance. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but I've always really loved, I remember when I was 9 and she had that CD, Baby One More Time. I bought it, and I think number 12, Email My Heart. Once I heard that, I was absolutely such a big Britney Spears fan. I used to play that song over. I actually ended up scratching the CD at that point. You know when you used to play a song a lot, we end up scratching it. I scratched it and I had to get another one because I was fortunate enough to be able to get another one, and I did the same thing to the second CD because I was so obsessed with that song and that album and her voice and the way she danced, and I just thought she was naturally a star. She's a natural star. So I did a reading on Britney on my Instagram. Please check it out if you're on YouTube. I will post a link to it, and also a lot of what I predicted has come true. I also was on Dana Wilkie's podcast. She used to be on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I predicted some things that have also come true. I said she'll be out of her conservatorship by January 2022. She'll be like on a partial one, but her dad won't be involved any longer. So I thoroughly, I really encourage you to have an open mind about this reading. I don't want you to get stuck in like, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm coming after you. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't happened to me, but I just want people to have an open mind, especially about dealing with her father, because I feel like her father's a very complex character. He's a Capricorn, and her mother's a Taurus, and I think that's a disaster to be in a relationship, because they're very stubborn. Capricorns are known to be stubborn, Taurus are known to be stubborn. So, and I actually see that in the card. So I'm going to get into it. For Britney's sake, I will no longer speak about Britney. This is more about James Spears and Lynn Spears and the future, like if they will be stepping down and so forth. Okay, so the past, I got Cut the Cords of Doubt. That's the oracle card that I got that often gives me direction about what that particular line is going to tell me, because I've pulled up different lines, past, present, and future. And I get King of Swords, the Moon, and the Hermit. Wow. So the Virgo card, and thinking with a logical mind. So I almost feel like they ended up being together just out of logic, and it would make sense. Both of them are Sun Earth signs. I don't know the rest of their chart. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I recommend reading up on CoStar app to have it, because your sun depicts how you are. Your sun is your ego most of the time. It's what you identify with. So I'm Aquarius, and I definitely identify with being Aquarius, but like your rising is how people view you, and oftentimes I can pick up people's suns by how they describe themselves. And yeah, so he seems to be very Capricorn, in the sense that he's very focused on money. And I always say this about Capricorns, I dated one for a long time. Some of my chart is Capricorn, actually a lot of my chart is Capricorn, and whenever Capricorns, you can get away with anything with them, but when you start to mess with their money, that's when they have a problem. Like, they're very chilled, very easygoing, but when money is involved, prepare for the ram to come out, the goat to come out. The ram is Aries, I'm sorry, the goat, they're the goat. So with that being said, I feel like this was a very logical perspective, and they were like, you know what, I think she might have gotten pregnant and then they got married. It was kind of that kind of energy. I don't see real love, I don't see real emotions, I don't see really solidness, doing it out of wellness. I think it was just like, okay, we're stuck together, so we'll be together. So I do see with the present Page of Swords, High Priestess, and Ace of Wands, there's a lot of learning. Obviously, contracts, Page of Swords, High Priestess, and Ace of Wands, and unstick the stack. So big shifts happening in the family, big shifts. So she, I believe, Lynn, the mother, has spiritual gifts, and she can kind of see, she has dreams. I think on her mother's side, I get her mother, because I feel like her mother's mother was from England, right? That person, the mother's mother, is psychic, is very intuitive, can clairvoyant, or she was clairvoyant. Like, people used to come and see her and stuff like that. So, well, the mother's side is very intuitive, and she got that line. I think Brittany has it too. And with Ace of Wands, it's giving her motivation to step forward. I don't think the motivation to come forward and be and kind of rat him out, I'm talking about James, and rat James out, is authentic. I think it comes from a place that's mean-spirited, but the relationship, the foundation, is mean-spirited to begin with. And you know, who we choose, our partners we choose, is a reflection of us, because we don't put up with oftentimes mean-spirited people if we are healthy and we know our boundaries and we are in alignment with health. So I strongly feel as though she's kind of like the dagger. She fights from underneath and he fights from on top, if that makes any sense. Like, she has a passive aggressive way about her, and he just is very aggressive. So with future, the sacred flow of yes. So I do see him being removed from the conservatorship, like I said before in my other reading. I do see that they have like a tie to each other, and I strongly feel Four of Swords, Page of Cups, Page of Pentacles, I think they are each other's karmic partners. And if you don't know what a karmic is, I recommend looking up on it. It's somebody that comes to teach you a big lesson in your life. But oftentimes in Western culture, we will confuse that as our soulmate, and we're like, I have this bond with this person, I'm meant to be with them, even if it's trash, even if the relationship is awful, even if there's dysfunction, even if there's all kinds of things. In fact, one of my karmics was a Capricorn, and just downright toxicity through and through. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of the time, you know, kids don't ask to be born. And when you say that, it's controversial, because people are like, you should be grateful. But I think more parents need to understand that how they treat their children is a reflection of them. And children are a mirror. So when you're blaming your child, just acknowledge that those traits might have come from you, or you might have them and you're projecting them onto your child. And I strongly feel with Four of Swords, Page of Cups, Page of Pentacles, they are the kind of relationship that should have been done after a lesson was learned, but they clearly haven't learned their lesson because they're both trying to hold on to power. It's like, what's that story? There's a story, I don't really care for the world, but there's a story about a monarchy where the king and the queen were fighting with each other, and then they burned the castle down. If you know the story I'm talking about, please write in the comments. But there's that story about the king and the queen of some monarchy in Europe that they fought so much that they ended up burning the castle down. And this to me is an example of that. So strength being at the bottom of the card, the bottom of the deck, they never stood a chance to be in a true relationship because none of them were going to show vulnerability. They both had like a, this is how I want it face, this is how I have to have it, you know. And when being in love with somebody like that, I've been that person, and I've also been in love with that person. It's very difficult to have a relationship with somebody like that. So the Lovers, Two of Air, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still secretly seeing each other. I wouldn't be surprised. So Ace of Fire, Nine of Air. Okay, so things are going to get a lot better now that, you know, and I often say this, I feel like, you know, Brittany's the middle child. Oftentimes the middle child comes into life to kind of like break up the dynamic of the family. And often middle children, that's why they're like, I don't want anything to do with my family. But it's often the middle child that's the black sheep. And I think that is designed that way by God, so that the middle child can be the one to shake up any dysfunction and systems of abuse in the family. So now that Brittany's spoken up, it's caused them to have to look at themselves because the world is watching them. And Capricorns are big on facades, big on how do people see me. So that's why now he's throwing Lynn under the bus. He's like, she's the one that did it. But Taurus, it's just a disaster because Taurus are very defensive. Very, very defensive. So they're going to go at each other. And they're even going to forget that they have children. Like, they're in such a dramatic... I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still together. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still romantically seeing each other. Just not married. Okay, let's see. Okay, so he must have Pisces in his chart somewhere. I get that very strongly. And with 8 of Earth, 7 of Air, 8 of Pentacles and 7 of Swords, it's very money focused. I think even when they started, you know, I do see, like they said, drinking issues on his end. I see drinking issues on her end too, and I suppose they are country. I don't want to talk bad about country because people that I met from the south are some of the sweetest, kindest people. They get such a bad rep and I don't know why. But 4 of Air, 4 of Swords, the dreamer, they kind of had this vision. They were like, okay, we're gonna make her star, we're gonna get all this money. But, and this is very controversial, whenever I say this people freak out, but I do not think that they meant to put her in such strenuous conditions. Now, whether we mean to, and I was watching this therapist, great guy, I forgot his name, but he said, whether we mean to do it or whether we do it doesn't take away from what has occurred. So, you know, oftentimes when you tell somebody that they hurt you and they're like, well, I didn't mean to, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve an apology because of that. And when you go to somebody and you say, hey, you've hurt me, and give what has happened and explain how you've been hurt, if they feel like, if it's used as like a barter system to keep you in their life, that's when it becomes an issue. And I strongly feel like that has happened here. It's like when Brittany would come forward and be like, hey, you hurt me, or any of the other children, because I feel like, even though I'm not a fan of Jamie Lynn, she was raised by these two, that she really had no other hope but to be like this. And like I said, the middle child is usually the one that's like separate from it, but the ones who become a part of this system often end up being like the parents. Her name, Jamie Lynn, her name is even her parents, you know. So it's just very, very interesting how this has all panned out. And future wise, I see him stepping down by the end of August, actually. It might be August 2022. No, because she'll be out of it by 2020. I get August, something big at the end of August. End of this month, wow, the end of this month, something big is going to happen regarding him. And this lawyer means business. The new law means business. I don't want to get too much about Brittany, but, and with Queen of Fire, Lynn is ready to show a side of her that she's been holding back, and that side is to expose him. So it's going to get very nasty, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go to the press and kind of leak things to the press, but that's what I have for you, and that's what we can learn from the situation. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.